Thanks for coming. Okay, great. We'll see you tonight. Thank you.
So, who are you guys? Tell me.
Who?
So we are going to do a Q&A, and for those of you who don't know who we are, we'll introduce ourselves. How about that? Do you want to go first, Dan?
Okay. He's Eric Stuart.
And that's Dan Green.
There you go. Hi!
Yay!
Thanks for having us.
Did you guys sign up for this class, or was it just you just said
It's mandatory.
It's mandatory? Yes. So the best way to do this, if you're not familiar, both Dan and I are voice actors, voice directors. We worked on a bunch of shows that you guys know, like Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon and things like that. You can ask us questions about stuff and we can answer. That's what the Q&A part is all about. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So who's brave enough to ask us a question?
Yeah, we don't have a moderator who helps, go to somebody with a mic and that sort of thing.
So if Dan doesn't take you, blame him.
But yeah, I think raising hands is a perfectly adequate way of navigating through this. So.
Hey, this is awesome. That's the only show I watch, by the way. Well done. I just wanted to tell you that. Very good, yes.
Lovely.
Oh, look at that.
Okay, Jamie, what's up?
Hey.
Hey.
Do you really not like flying? Is it terribly?
Both of us?
Yeah.
I have no problem.
I hear about this special flying course.
Oh, my special flying pills? I'm actually claustrophobic.
Oh no, that's terrible.
So I'm not afraid of the crashing and burning of the plane. I'm afraid of being trapped between two giant people in the middle. And I have a couple of fears about that kind of stuff. You know the water slides with the fully enclosed tubes? So my biggest fear, and you might think this is silly, but that a very large person is in front of me and gets wedged like a cork. And it's filling up.
You told me you would never bring that up.
I'm sorry, Eric. It starts filling up with water. And then by the time I get there, I drown. I can't watch cave diving movies. I can't watch anything like that, buried alive stuff. No, thank you. So I hadn't flown in a long time, and I unfortunately had to have shoulder surgery, but I had to go in for an MRI. And for those of you who don't know what an MRI is, it's a coffin run by doctors. And I couldn't have an open one. My insurance didn't cover an open one for some reason. They were like, no, sorry, you have the bad insurance. So I went to go get an MRI, and I freaked out as they put me a foot in with just my head. And the guy said, you know what, this happens a lot. I recommend you go get some anti-anxiety medicine, and you might be able to do this. And I was like, really? I can get that? And so I went to one of the clinics, and they prescribed diazepam, which is, of course, like a Valium kind of thing. Don't take them a lot, but I took it, put on some headphones and listened to classic rock, because they also ask you what you want to listen to, and it was fine. And I thought, well, if I can handle going into this coffin run by doctors, I probably can fly again. So I now take a half a little diazepam before I get on long flights. I don't have to take them every time, but that's what it is. It's not the fear of flying, it's the fear of being wedged in a water slide. A good question.
And I do not have an issue with flying. But I take massive drugs anyway when I do.
Yes, I go in and get the diazepam for Dan, yes.
These might be old.
Do you need more? Who's got a question?
Yes.
What drugs do you take?
Get out of this.
No, I kind of have a two-part question.
Sure.
Whenever I did theater, we kind of had a little meeting game to kind of get to know the material better, and we all kind of recast the play as who would be doing the puppets.
Oh, cool.
Did you guys kind of do anything like that in the voice acting realm?
I've never been introduced to that.
So you mean assign what Muppet would be your character?
Yes.
Wow, that's an interesting exercise. I mean, you just think of like a cartoon character or like a puppet, which is already sort of a character to be then put into another character. That's interesting. So, what Muppet would be Seto Kaba? Would it be Oscar the Grouch? But even though he's a Sesame Street, would it be? See, it's hard. Like I couldn't even think. Like I mean.
Sam Eagle's the first that comes to mind.
Oh, yeah. See, I don't think anybody is that obnoxious. So that's a very tough exercise. Like, I could see something like, Kermit could be Ash from Pokemon.
That's usually what ends up happening. Is the main character is almost always Kermit.
Right.
Yeah. But that's a good exercise. No, I never did anything like that with any of our characters.
Yeah. So sorry, that's not a very full answer to that, but it's a great question.
And we love the Muppets.
Yeah, we do. What's the second part of that?
And this is kind of a hypothetical. Like if you guys, since you guys do both producers and casting, if you guys had any chance to do a Shakespearean play, who would you both cast as Yugi and Kaiba, and what play?
What Shakespearean characters are adequate for Yugi and Kaiba?
I'm going to leave that to Dan because he's got much more of a background in.
Yeah, I used to do Shakespeare. I used to do stage stuff, and so that means I'm a lot more smart than those. But off the top of my head, I would say that that Kaiba might be an Iago. Also, could be a Richard III. And of course, now with you have two characters with Yugi and Yami, and Yugi has the simplicity and earnestness of a Romeo, and Yami has the command and attitude of. That's rough. Not a lot of really noble kings in Shakespeare. They all have problems. So it was like Macbeth, if he just didn't get too greedy, or I just almost, but yeah, it's hard to say.
It's like the opposite problem with the Muppets.
That's
really what it is, right? Because everyone is dark in Shakespeare, and nobody's dark in Muppets. Oh, that's a good question. Wow.
Yeah.
Well done. In the back.
What are your favorite lines that you remember saying in Yu-Gi-Oh?
I think one of my favorite lines was, and Eric, back me up because you directed the first two
I don't
seasons.
know. I was drinking.
But I think one of my favorite lines was, Eric, was that good enough?
Yeah.
I remember asking that line. I'm not sure if that ever made the.
And I would say things like, that was good, but can we try this next one with talent? That was another one of mine.
It's true.
You know what's funny about those shows in particular, and yes, I mean, we worked on them for years, and yeah, I was directing Yu-Gi-Oh! As well, but I didn't have to memorize scripts. So those things weren't sort of like, ingrained in my brain. The main reason I remember any lines from those shows is because you fans will say, I loved it when you did this, and it will remind me of moments. I have more famous, or favorite Pokemon lines because of the humor. To me, Kaiba was just this sort of umbrella of sarcasm that was fun. There wasn't one-liners, and I never really thought of him as one-liners. Even with the new movie, where people were like, that one time when you said this and this, it's like, I wasn't thinking well, here comes my zinger. It was more like, here's the performance, and this just happened to be a line that you remembered. We got a chance to watch the movie for the first time with an audience in New York at the premiere. Not production people, but actually fans, which is always a great litmus test, because we're sitting in the audience thinking, is this a good scene? Do they like this? Are they going to find this dramatic? Are they going to find this corny? And where the laughs came and stuff like that, it was like, okay, I thought that line was kind of funny, but I guess it was really funny. So, you never know until you tell us.
Right. And also, at this wonderfully unpredictable stage area that we are in, receiving this attention from such amazing fans, over 10 years after it signed off air, right? We get reflected back, as Eric was saying, the moments that were special to you. And so I feel like I've accrued special lines because they're special to the fans. Of course, there's some tagline, Exodia Obliterate, that became something that fans like to hear. And it was always fun to perform. But the brevity with which we are engaging with the material, the lack of, being provided the opportunity to memorize lines, which really isn't functionally useful when you're recording in that kind of environment. We don't hold on to those lines that long, right? So a lot of it is about how it's reflected back. But that said, yeah, I think we have more this wash of, I like this attitude, as for Eric, the umbrella of sarcasm. For me, I enjoy the openness and earnestness, and sometimes the fear through insecurity of Yugi, and I enjoy doing the command and the certitude, and sometimes too close to the edge of being going a little too far with Yami, right? That got him out because of his relationship with Yuki. So those general broad strokes of the kinds of attitudes that we were bringing to the lines that we had, I think is really more representative of what stays with us. And also, without being disrespectful to the show itself, I don't know that it was particularly known for its dialogue, right? I mean, there's an importance, again, I don't mean to offend anyone, but a lot of the activity of the dialogue was about describing what was relevant about the cards. So you would never mistake that for poetry, right? And part of our challenge as performers was making that stuff sound like it was meaningful, urgently, emotionally, to characters that were actually alive.
Yeah, to teach you how to play the game is not acting. We made those characters teach you how to play the game. In the 20-minute episode, because that's really how long a half-hour show runs, 10 minutes of that is a battle. So 10 minutes of that, it's like, when in any action movie, do you ever hear someone go, I'm going to use my broadsword and stab you in the chest, which will cause your heart to bleed. No one explains that stuff, I'm just going to do it.
Can you imagine if people played football that way?
Yeah, and I'm going to throw this ball to you as you run down.
And now that I have got you, I will run forward using my feet rapidly.
So asking actors to make that interesting is, that was a challenge, more so than remembering what it was like. Yes.
And I'm sorry.
Superman had a question.
Sorry. Write it down. Also, these lines, though, they do gain resonance. And when you're first performing something, how many people act? How many people have done any acting? Raise your hands. Don't be shy. Right. So, what's that? Very good. And so you understand there's a state of relationship you have with the text where you've never seen it before. It is strange to you. What are these words? What do they mean? What's the context? What's the motivation? All that stuff. You have to create that bridge. You have to make it meaningful to yourself, right? Do you agree? Am I misrepresenting the process? Right. So that's basic, straightforward stuff. And so hopefully you found enough of a compelling way of relating to the material so that your performance of the character is itself compelling, right? And then over time, if you have the advantage of having time to perform a character, that becomes potentially more nuanced, or maybe you see how what your performance is doing to other people affecting the audience, right? And then that meaning gets layered. So when I first said trust the heart of the cards, I was like, what the hell is this? I mean, a commercial, trust the heart of the cards we want you to buy. But of course that's not what it means to the character, right? And you know that you're trying to say something very sincere and meaningful. And now, so many years later, I know exactly what it means.
Definitely, yeah, that's true. Good, that was good. Yeah. Right there, see?
But let's do yes.
Awesome. Yeah.
So
You were talking about Aquaman?
Yeah.
all through the history of like the show on Yu-Gi-Oh, whenever there was the moment where the villain was winning and the Pharaoh would come back and he would turn the tide, he'd have like a speech or he would say something or something.
Yeah.
And in Dark Side Dimensions, he just pops up and just does it. He just plays, and that's the end of the thing.
Yes.
It's a simulation, though. It's not him.
Well, I'm talking about the end. I'm talking about the very end.
And don't spoil it. Yes.
I'm talking about the very, very end. He comes in, he doesn't even say anything.
Right.
He doesn't have
It's
to.
the one card down, he just plays. I was really wanting him to say something when he popped in.
And that's what they want you to want.
But from, do you have any idea what he may have said if he had said something?
He might have said something like, what the hell is this card? Why am I playing cards to save the world? That doesn't make any sense. No. The point, the question you're left with is the point of that scene.
Yes.
That's to entice you. So the way that you get that. So the way that you're wondering is the function of that. So for me to tell you what it might be, I don't think that really serves the point of the way that story was told. Now, it wouldn't be surprising.
I totally got you, but I just really would want to know.
What my personal opinion was?
Yeah, but what he would have played.
The most obvious thing would be some form of dark magician, whether it's dark magician girl or dark magician himself, because that's such a key aspect of who helped make Yami who he is, right? And then probably a more disappointing one would be no offense, but Karibo, I mean, he's really cute and really useful, but you wouldn't want to, you know, that wouldn't be the best last note to lead. Oh, Karibo, oh, okay, right? Or
But you mean in that moment specifically. But there's a reason, just let me interrupt you, but I want to give you an idea of why the movie is longer than most American versions of the movie, and why the dialogue is the way it is in that movie, is because...
And the way that it is not.
Yes, and the way it is not, and the way the music is and it is not, is because Sensei, the creator of Yu-Gi-Oh!, came back and supervised this entire project himself. We didn't change dialogue, we didn't change pacing, we didn't have to explain what was going on. If you didn't understand what Yu-Gi-Oh! Was about, then you go to the movies with someone who might be able to explain a little bit to you. I took my band with me to see the movie with me in Nashville, and we went out to dinner first so that I could explain to them a little bit about what was going on, so that they wouldn't just be lost. But they loved it. Like, after they saw the movie, it wasn't like they were completely confused. And that goes a lot, it says a lot for the fact that the characters are strong, the story was strong, you can understand the fight of good and evil, and of course, you know, my enemy's enemy is, you know, is my enemy. You know, we become, you know, that's how that always happens in our world. We are not enemies, we are rivals, we actually work together all the time. But I think that the way that was done was much more cinematic. And so not having a hero speak at that dramatic moment, if he had said something, to me that would have been cheesy.
What could possibly live up to that?
There's nothing stronger than his action. So I don't. Right, so that's what I'm saying is that yes, from all the years of growing up watching that, there would have been a line put there. There would have been more dialogue put there. But I think the strength of the show, or the original concept of it, is that it doesn't require that.
And just to reflect something you were saying about watching with your band, there's this old saying that if a show, a play specifically was the reference for this, is directed and performed well, you can understand it even if you don't understand the language they're speaking.
Yeah.
And so that's that clarity of understanding the characters, the structure of the story, that's what really communicates more than any language. Now I have a question for you. What do you think that card should be?
What do you think I play?
Yeah. Well, you asked me what the card should be.
I think, yeah, but what did you mean with what he would have said at that moment?
Okay.
Because there was a missing quote line.
Oh, I see. So you weren't asking so much specifically about what the card would be. I misunderstood.
What a line he could have said right there.
Oh, I think he would have said something like, Kaiba, good to see you again. Maybe, or something like that.
Yeah. Well, I think Kaiba would have gone.
Kevin was gone by that point.
Yeah, but what card did he play? What figure comes out? Priest said it.
Was it? I thought that was Muhammad. Go back and watch it.
Clearly you have not been examining Seto's bootwear from 8 eons ago.
Yes, but anyway, yes. So, but that's the point we were making is that...
I'm sorry, I misunderstood the question.
Yes, good question.
Can I misunderstand somebody else?
Yes. Oh, wait, there's...
Yeah, you!
Oh, shh.
Did you like the part when you said, when Kaiba said, you know, black and stuff?
Yes, that was funny, wasn't it? I did like that. I liked when I crushed the can and then decided that whoever made the cans crushable should be fired. That was pretty funny, too. That's some funny stuff. Do you like Kaiba?
Yeah.
That's good.
He's
Good
so
answer.
cool. He's so cool.
Yeah. And who else has an elevator to space? Oh, you got your cards, huh?
Also, do you recognize this card?
From this distance, it's hard
It's hard to see, and it's also metallic, so is that...
Do you want to come up here,
Is that
Rich?
No.
Exodia? Oh, is it Blue Eyes White Dragon? I've seen 4 of these and kept 3.
Well done.
Oh, come on now. All right, good. That's good though. I'm glad you got those in your deck. That's good. You good?
Oh, yes.
What is that?
Millennium Puzzle.
All right, who's got a question for us? Anybody on this? Yes.
In the new movie, did you ad-lib any lines?
We didn't really ad-lib, but there are definitely moments where I would say something, it might have been a short little quip, and then after it was recorded, I would say it in my Kaiba-esque way, and a couple of those were turned around to be that delivery. I mean, doing the character for so long, I mean, even one of the reasons where I got the role is because, and I know it's a surprise, but the sarcasm comes very organically for me. And so, when you try to write for a character that, you know, the actor already kind of knows how to speak that way. Some of them are acceptable, and others I would joke around. They go, you know what? Let's get that. But the majority of the stuff was not ad-lib, and especially when we're matching lip flap. It's not like we can just say something that doesn't fit.
Right.
You remember, we're stuck with that. So, but I thought the writers did a very good job with capturing what the fans wanted to hear from us as well. There was, you know, we poked fun at ourselves as well, which was part of it too. You know, so yeah.
Yeah, and backing up everything that Eric just said, although, and I'm really not sure about this, so if it turns out that this is
that
wrong.
had to have been an ad-lib.
Well, so there's this moment where Yugi is running, he has to take a break, he says, my cardio sucks.
That's totally Dan. Yeah.
But not that it's that funny, but it was.
It was funny. I laughed when I did because, you know, we record, except when we work on the show, because, you know, I would be directing, so I would see Dan, and we'd work together all the time. I know this ruins the whole this thing that we do, but we're actually really good friends. So that's how we sort of develop our friendship, working together for so many years. But we don't record together in the film. So I had not seen or heard Yugi's performance until we were in the theater.
Yeah.
And so that line came up and I laughed. You know, so it was, but I was like, how did that even get in the movie? Yeah,
They kept it in.
Yeah, very good. All right, who's got another question for us?
Harley Quinn.
Yes.
Who would you choose, Nurse Dora or Officer Dave?
Now, are you talking as Brock or as Eric Stewart?
Both.
Okay, so as Eric Stewart, I've answered this question before, and it's always going to be consistent. I like Nurse Joy because she can take care of you, and I respect that. But I have a thing for women in uniform. So Officer Jenny would probably be who I would date. Because that's just me. But Brock will never make up his mind. You can't, I mean, anyone who's either met or been a 15-year-old boy knows that when a shiny object goes by, they're just like distracted. So I just think that, especially the fact that he thinks that there are many of the Nurse Joys and Officer Jennys, you know, of course, you know, like there's something subtly different about the same animation in every city. Yeah, I don't think he'll ever make a choice, which is good for him. I don't think he ever should, right? Who do you think he should end up with?
Harley Quinn.
Ash's mom?
Honestly, if I had a chance, it'd probably be Erica, the trainer.
Okay. But see, what's interesting about that whole show, and when we started working on Yu-Gi-Oh, I called it Pokemon 90210. That's what I said. Those relationships, that kind of relationship, is not really part of that story. I'm not disagreeing with the question, but it's not relevant to that age group and their storyline. So, you know, Jesse and James, in the comics, they're a couple. They have a child together. But for the TV show, it was not even relevant. I understand it's fun to think of who would be a couple. You know, Ash and Misty. I mean, the fact that Ash has not realized that Misty has a crush on him and is with him the whole time, he doesn't even think of, that's not his mindset for a 10-year-old boy. Wait a second, this girl that's my friend should be my girlfriend. It's just my friend. I think that Yu-Gi-Oh! Took the slightly more mature sort of hinting at that with Mai and Joey and stuff like that, but still, it was not like relevant to the story. I think the next generation show would be. There would be the families that came from that sort of stuff. But yeah, it's just interesting because I never even thought Brock should have either one of them as a girlfriend. I think the whole point of a 15-year-old boy being just, wait a second, I like girls, but I don't know how to talk to girls. Been there, done that, right? Yeah. So.
Yes.
I got a question. how did you get the role of Mewtwo years ago? And how did you like being Mewtwo in Pokemon?
I loved it, and I obviously was not the first person to portray that character. And I had some concern that, that my interpretation wouldn't be favorable or even decent. But I am glad that at least some fans like what I did with that. And as an actor, you like to have stuff that you can sink your teeth into dramatically, which generally means some form of dramatic tension, some conflict, whether it's external or internal or both. And of course, Mewtwo has a ton of that. And even though he comes across as the main threat, right, he's obviously coming from a place that we are sympathetic with, right? And so I like that complexity. Those kinds of things are really rewarding to explore as an actor because they resonate with what happens in real life, right? Things don't stay with you unless they hit upon some kind of truth, right, that you understand, right? So, so I did really enjoy that process, and for anybody who preferred the previous performance, I hold nothing against you. You know, it's just that's the way things are. But I was very fortunate to have a chance to perform not only that character, but that character in a story that revealed what was interesting about it.
You pick.
Oh yes.
So,
Stay in the house, Carl. Stay in the house. Go ahead.
James is probably my favorite character from Pokemon, and I was
Oh.
wondering, I was wondering how you came up with the laugh, if you came up with the laugh.
Okay, so I'm going to be very honest with you. There is nothing new. We borrow from the greats. Okay? I have no problem, and I do with my music, the influences of my youth growing up. That's how I perform, that's how I write. The same thing for me as an actor, especially when I'm doing character things. I borrow from the best. Brock is my version of Casey Kasem, because that's what I grew up watching Battle of the Planets, and I imitated him. And it's like Shaggy without as much diazepam. But with James, I went to a very hippy-dippy private school in New York, and we played sports against very, very snooty Manhattan prep schools. The guys with the, basically the ascots and the blazers and stuff like that, and we all looked like, somebody went to Goodwill and just took the stuff out, and we were just like, and we sat with our feet up on the table. It's just a crazy hippie school, but really good school.